According to the graph, the percentage of individuals in the UK of various ages from 1911 to 2011 is shown. Between the ages of 15 and 64, around 65% of the population was represented each year. The percentage of adults 65 and older has risen steadily since 1911, from 5% to over 20% in 2011. From 30% in 1911 to less than 20% in 2011, the population under the age of 14 has steadily fallen. As a result, between the ages of 15 and 64, there has been a rise in the elderly population, while the younger population has dropped. Unleaded gasoline prices in the United States and Canada are shown in pennies per gallon on the graph. To begin with, the price of gasoline in the United States has fluctuated over time, peaking in 2008 at $4 per gallon, while the price of gasoline in Canada also reached a record high in 2008, at $3.50 per gallon. The price of gasoline in the United States is often higher than in Canada, despite the fact that both nations' fuel costs have risen in recent years. The supplied line graph shows data on the radio and TV audiences of UK throughout a day of October-December 1992. Only 5% people who are above 4 years listened radio or watched TV from 1 a.m. till 5:30 a.m. next day, and after that, the radio audiences increased remarkably, around 25% at 9 a.m. During this time very few people watched TV. The radio listeners' percentage decreased to 5% at 7 p.m. and remained the same till the next day morning. On the other hand, the TV viewers' percentage increased after 2:30 p.m. and reached to 45% at around 9:30 p.m. The following graph depicts the planting process. The first phase, as shown in the diagram, is radiating pine thinning. After that, the debarking drum is the next stage. The next process involves a chipper that may chip the plantation. The thermomechanical refiner follows, which requires water to work. Finally, there's the paper-making machine, which brings the entire paper-making process to a close. Finally, this graph is quite useful. From 1960 to 2010, this line graph depicts the yearly average number of hospital visits in Glasgow, Scotland, per resident. Hospital visits per capita in 1960 averaged 2.23 per year. In 1990, this number climbed significantly to 2.5. The average number of hospital visits per person per year had increased to 3.2 in 2010. Between 1960 and 2010, the average number of hospital visits per person in Glasgow increased. In this bar graph, the percentage of the people living in urban regions is shown through time. Africa's population grew at the slowest rate, from 15% in 1950 to 37% in 2007, and is only expected to rise by 51% by 2030. North America's population grew from 64% in 1950 to 79% in 2007 and is expected to expand to 87% by 2030, making it the most populous continent in the world. Overall, Africa had the lowest population density, whereas North America had the highest growth rate. A youngster might become a victim of several forms of bullying actions at school on a regular basis. The majority of them are name-calling and insults, which account for 80% of the events, followed by shoving forward/hitting, 39%, threats, 38%, spreading rumors, 29%, internet bullying, 27%, involving friends, 24%, and homophobic comments, 24%. 20%. Fighting, sexual comments, exclusion, racial comments, destroying property, theft, and weapon-related offenses account for 16%, 14%, 13%, 11%, 9%, 6%, and 4% of all bullying episodes, respectively. Under the title Yearly Temperature and Precipitation for the areas of Manaus, Amazonas, and Brazil, the graphic comprises two components, a line graph and a bar graph. The temperature is shown in Celsius on the line graph, while precipitation is shown in millimeters on the blue bars. On the x-axis, we have the months of the year, which begin in January and conclude in December. The most rainfall, up to 300 millimeters, is recorded in the months of March and April, while the lowest is recorded in the months of July, August, and September. Finally, from January to July, the temperature is nearly constant, but it rises dramatically in August, September, and October before declining in November and December. From 1996 to 2012, the data in this graph depicts global wind power capacity. The graph shows that in 2012, there were 283 of them, which is clearly the highest number. The graph shows that 2011, with a total of 238, has the second highest number. The graph shows that the lowest number was in 1996, with a value of 6.1. Finally, the graph shows an increase. In the UK, this graph illustrates the distribution of income by age and gender. According to the graph, the biggest number of females may be seen between the ages of 30 and 34, which is around £20,000. The smallest group is under the age of 20, with a population of roughly 10,000. Males in the 50 to 54 age bracket account for around 28,000 of the total. There are about 20,000 people in the 70 to 74 age range, which is the smallest group. To summarize, the pre-tax median income of men is greater than the pre-tax median income of women. The country's natural vegetation is depicted on the map. Mountain subtropical and temperate vegetation, swamps, and tropical dry deciduous vegetation are only a few of the 9 types of natural vegetation shown on the map. You may find a lot of tropical dry deciduous trees in India's central and southern regions. It's not just thorns and evergreens that populate India, though. In the end, India is a perfect location for farming. This bar graph illustrates the holiday accommodation chosen by people in the United Kingdom in 2010. Generally, it is possible to say that the English, Scottish, Northern Irish and Welsh made very similar choices. In all 4 countries, approximately half the people chose to stay in hotels. This figure was highest in England at around 55%, almost twice the number of people who cooked for themselves and far greater than the number who stayed in campsites and caravans. A similar pattern was repeated for the Scots and the Welsh. The one country that shows a different pattern was Northern Ireland. Here's a pie chart showing how different municipalities spend their annual budgets. Environmental services at 4% and other causes, 6%, which accounted for just 4% and 6% of the total budget respectively, were the second and third largest expenditures. Government spending on higher education accounted for the greatest proportion of government spending, while environmental services received the least. The distribution of rainforests in South America is seen on this map. When we look at the top of the map, we can clearly see that the vast majority of the region is a light green, a color associated with tropical rainforests. The temperate rainforests of southern South America may be seen in the image's lower right corner, which is colored turquoise, dark green. We can see that there aren't any rainforests in that area since much of the map is beige, light yellow. Finally, South America's tropical rainforests occupy the majority of the continent's land mass. The bar graph, which is measured in tens of thousands, depicts the week's worth of daily vehicle production. As the week progresses, it appears that automobile production rises steadily, peaking at 13,400 cars on Wednesday and then fluctuating, with just 2,000 cars manufactured on Saturday and no cars made on Sunday. Overall, Wednesday is the day when the most automobiles are created, while Sunday is the only day when no cars are made. From 2005 to 2006, This graph shows the link between the male labor market and the overall trend of economic inactivity. In terms of the male labor market, 68% of the population of 5,543 is working, while just 4% of the population is jobless. During this time period, there are 2,260 men who are not working. In terms of economic inactivity, girls and males appear to be on opposing extremes of the spectrum. Females had a considerable decline in the number between 1911 and 2001, while men saw a minor gain. To summarize, throughout the course of a century, the patterns of economic inactivity underwent significant shifts. The given picture is confusing and does not give much information about anything. The image has no labels or a title, but if I look closely, I can say that there are various circles or rings that become smaller outside in. In other words, the outermost circle is the largest, and as we get into the center, the ring's size decreases. Lastly, the rings end up in a dot in the center, making it a kind of spiral shape. I also observe that bigger rings are thinner, and as we get into the center, the thickness of the rings increases. Overall, we can conclude that the picture contains a spiral where lots of circles are drawn. Household chores take up a large portion of the ordinary day for most people in Britain. Other activities and childcare took up 25% of people's time, while meal preparation and laundry accounted for 10% and 5% of time, respectively, of total time spent. People in the United Kingdom spend the majority of their time taking care of their children and other activities, with little time spent on cooking and washing. A beautiful illustration depicts how complicated-looking taxi services operate around a town or metropolis. As can be seen in the image, there are several components involved. To complete a taxi service workflow, the most up-to-date technological tools and equipment are employed. Customers may book taxis over the phone or online, according to the graphic. If the order is placed by phone, it is routed to operators who arrange a reservation. It goes to a workstation desktop if it's online. Finally, the order is sent to the main taxi service server, which contacts the nearest or concerned taxi drivers. The entire workflow is dependent on satellites and devices, as indicated in the middle of the image. This graph shows the growth of the population in Canada from 1978 to 2009. It is taken from the website About Statistics in Canada. There are 3 graphs in the chart. The green graph shows the total growth of the population, the black one deals with the migrated people in Canada, and the blue graph shows the natural increase of the population. In 1988/89 there was an enormous growth. In the following years the total growth went down to about 250,000 in 1998/99. From that time on the Canadian population has been gradually growing again, although the natural increase slows down. So we can say that the growth of the population in Canada is based on migration.